I always feel so powerful when I come up here and the room becomes silent. Well, hello, and welcome all of you to our opening day celebration for WOW, World of Wearable Art. I'm so excited that you're all here to hear from these amazing speakers today. My name is Shoshana Resnikoff, and I'm an assistant curator for exhibitions and research here at the Peabody Essex Museum. And I'm so excited to welcome our speakers, Mio Gubernic and Alexa Cash, who as collaborators took home 3 awards from WOW's 2016 competition. But before we get to meet them and hear and see some examples of their beautiful work, I'd like to take care of a few pieces of business. First, the museum would like to thank the Lowell Institute for making today's programs possible, and also to give you a little note about the format for our programs. To begin, our 2 presenters will individually come to the podium and give brief presentations of their work, accompanied by some pretty incredible images. And then after that, the 3 of us will return to the stage for a conversation, followed by a Q&A session, where you'll be able to ask them any questions you'd like. And last but certainly not least, please do turn off your cell phones. I always forget to do that, so I'll do that when I sit down. So, to get the show on the road, it is my great pleasure to introduce our first presenter, Mio Gubernic. Mio grew up in Serbia, where he graduated from the Academy of Fine Arts in Belgrade with a BFA in costume and fashion design. He was awarded a full scholarship in the US to Northwestern University's stage design program and graduated with an MFA in theater costume design in 2011. Today, Mio resides in New York City, where he owns the design company Mio Design NYC and works on a wide range of projects, including dance, theater performances, corporate events, window displays, and major concerts and music videos. His work has been featured in national and international editorials, art books, and at New York Fashion Week. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Mio.
Well, hello everyone. Before I start, I would like to thank the museum for such warm welcome and for giving us opportunity to show our work, and to congratulate to World of Wearable Art team for a beautiful exhibition. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely take a look. I prepared like a brief presentation to show you some of the work that I did in the past few years. And we can start the presentation, so I will guide you through some of the things that I did. I wanted to start with drawings because everything that I do starts always with a drawing. And I kind of sketch my ideas on the paper before I dive into any other work. I started drawing when I was 3 years old, and since then my drawing style transformed, of course, but this is the work that I'm doing in past probably years. The shapes and forms kind of change and they have more organic alien look, and I sketch all the time. I basically always carry the sketchbook with me, and I don't have necessarily habit to do it every day, but sometimes they just come on paper and I try to capture everything that comes to mind. I love watercolors, and I try to do as many different techniques as I can to kind of just express whatever crosses my mind. I've explored a lot of different techniques, and I'm always interested in having fun with different collage techniques. It's like Photoshop collage and actual collage, and using all mediums accessible to create the character or to just like put things on the paper. All these things inspire my work for editorial and for commercial work. So these are some of the images that you will see that basically speak of all of the things that I was able to pull from the paper into reality, from 2D to 3D. And some of these photos were for different kinds of editorials, and I kind of like to start small, and then sometimes I create only a headpiece or an accessory thing that grows into something much bigger and much larger. And I love creating masks, and I love creating headpieces. I always feel like that's a cool thing that kind of like extends the character and like just amplifies the human figure. I love to play with different materials, and I love to combine as many different new ways to bring things together. I love working with plastic and crystals and vinyl. I sometimes collage things that are found objects. I try to play. I try to use as many different things and bring them to life. I love working with paper and like figuring out what is the way to assemble them together. It's always fun. As an artisan, I work with a lot of different people, and I work with designers who have their ideas developed, and then I have the design, and then I'm developing how the thing comes to life. So some of these photos are collaborations with different costume designers and different artists in general who have the idea but don't know how to bring it to life. And I love being part of that process, because it's always fun to just like figure out the way to bring some of the things that are maybe even only on the sketch or just a thought, and then illustrate it and basically bring it to 3D. Some of the stuff was, it's always also like different materials, different techniques. Some of it was for Broadway productions, off-Broadway productions in New York, accessories, different kind of accessories and different things. I also work as theater artist, so I design costumes for productions. These are some of the costumes that I designed for productions in New York. I try to choose the work that it's more avant-garde, and that gives me opportunity to just like play and do crazy things, as crazy as possible. Sometimes that interaction is fun with performers, and it's always nice to bring some characters to life from the script, to find a way to get it to life. And some of them are actually pretty simple and contemporary clothing, but usually I love to do fun and crazy things. I really enjoy working in Window Display World, and some of the work that I do for Window Displays, usually in collaboration with big studios from New York, and I have different assignments for different studios. Sometimes I'm in charge of pattern making or developing the concept from the sketch. Sometimes it's like doing the layouts for the stores. It's always different, and it's always work with numerous artists that work in the window display industry. And I love creating accessories, and I love creating like pieces for mannequins because they never complain. They're always so it's always nice to go crazy with them. And some of the following images, you will see that there are installations at stores on the Fifth Avenue, and they're collaborations with multiple artists where I'm contribute with a painting or a sketch, or just like developing the part of the process, building paper flowers, or conceptualizing installation. They're pretty elaborate, or crystallizing mannequins and figuring out the ways to just make them as impactful and please the client, so that some of the things can really look as elaborate as they can. And the cool thing about window displays is that they also are always different. And every time with each job, it's always fun to see like what is our assignment. And the artists that I get to meet when I work on window displays, it's always fun because it's kind of combination of sculptors and painters, and so many different kinds of art comes together to make these things. I love holiday displays, and New York is always incredible to kind of just to walk through during holidays, because this is because it's one of the things that I love the most about Windows. And this is one of the last windows I did last year, so I wanted to end with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mio. Our next speaker is Alexa Cash. Alexa is a Swiss citizen who lives and works in Providence, Rhode Island, so right down the road. In 1998, she moved from Switzerland to the US after meeting her husband while traveling through South America. She now co-owns with her business partner, Molly Northern, the jewelry and accessory company House of Cash, and specializes in creating wearable art. With her company, she has presented in New York, Paris, and Boston Fashion Week, and her work has been published in national and in international publications. Most recently, her work has been purchased into the permanent collection of the Museum of Whimsy in Oregon. Please give a warm welcome to Alexa.
Thanks so much for attending this panel discussion, and welcome. This is actually my second opportunity that I've had to work at the Penn Museum. The first one was a fashion shoot that we did for Fashion TV, and we did this at the China House, which was a really incredible experience. I was invited by designer Candice Wu in Boston to make accessories for the shoot. And so thank you so much, Pam, for having me back. I want to give you a quick background because I sort of had an unusual journey into design and art. I had a very old-fashioned father who believed that the role of a woman was in the arts, or maybe philosophy, preferably classical music. So I naturally decided to study business and economics because that made sense. And I then spent many years living out my creativity as what probably one would call a serial entrepreneur. And I want to give you an overview of a couple of the companies that I've owned that ultimately are responsible to push me and mold me into what I am today. Starting off with the very first company that I co-owned, which was in Switzerland, and that was a company called Gwand, and we were a fashion design platform for emerging designers. And the idea was to take very established design houses and presenting them next to young designers that really never made it out of the third floor apartment, but that were working on incredible collections, and presenting them in an environment that allowed them to grow and foster. And we featured multiple design awards with that, which is not very unlike WOW, where we provide a promotional and economic support for them. And I have to tell you, being here now basically means that I switched the aisle and I'm now receiving all of this support. And I have to say, it feels really, really good. And thank you, WOW, for having us be part of your family. The second company, and probably the company that did push me to ultimately do what I do now, was a company called Bev Fashion Week New York. And Bev Fashion Week New York was a more commercial take on what I had done with Gwand. We were a two-day trade-only trade shows in Chelsea, New York. And again, we were featuring different design awards and runway shows. But what was different here was we were pretty much the only game in town. So internationally, people were looking to us for guidelines and rules. So unlike the fashion world that has very established rules, this was an area where there were no rules written. And so this gave us pretty much a free pass to go completely crazy. And I had a very incredible fashion team that was helping me execute all of these projects. And what you can see here on the right-hand side is actually something we executed according to the Swarovski Trend Vision, which shows a poodle that has a neck piece on that was made out of Bichon hair. And the poodle also was dyed, and he was accessorized. This was done by actually the personal groomer of the Princess of Thailand, not of the Princess of Thailand, of the dogs of the Princess of Thailand, who came with 4 dogs to New York to collaborate with us on this project. And the garments were done by a designer named Jonathan Joseph Peters, and there were actually multiple artists involved, and I created for it, and it was a large project. And here a few, a collage of a few images that came out of that time. On the left-hand side is another poodle, and this one is wearing a traditional Thai hairpiece, which was a beautiful visual, but didn't go very well in the Thai press because it was considered highly disrespectful, but it was beautiful. On the right-hand corner, you have a more commercial product, which was done by a company called Manfred of Sweden, which was very beautiful leather coats, and then you have some runway show images. This was the company where I realized that I really wanted to create because I was drowning in paperwork behind the desk, and all I wanted to do was build things for these projects. And so I finally decided that I had to jump and just do that and allow myself that, that luxury. And so I went ahead and I started a company called House of Cash, which is a design studio that is located in Providence, Rhode Island. And we specialize in creating wearable art. And I founded this company with my best friend, Molly Northern, who I actually owned a couple companies with. And the way we work, and this is sort of unusual, is we do large-scale arts projects that we extend thus collaborations to a variety of different artists. And then in the end of the arts projects, we look at all the things we've played with and developed with, and we take those things and we narrow them down to pieces that can be sold in stores. So this gives us the freedom to develop and play, which is a very difficult process as an artist if you just sit there and you know that you have to design for a relatively low price point. So I want to walk you through three projects that we've done. The first one being the very first big project, which was Thoughts on Organized Religion, Gender, and Sexuality. This was in a time where we did a lot of design work and custom work for drag performers. So this was a project that was predominantly in the LGBT community. And this was one of the main shoots that we did, which was done by photographer Santiago Felipe in New York. And here are a couple images associated to that. And during that same time, we received an artist assignment by Headmaster Magazine, which Headmaster Magazine is a magazine that is an arts tabletop magazine for the gay community. And they extend international artist assignments to a whole variety of artists. And we were given the assignment to design and construct a series of objects to be worn by a carpenter. And since we were in the realm of religion, we decided to portray Jesus. And Jesus in the LGBT community is maybe not always as submissive. Like if you look at usually visuals of Jesus, it's a very submissive body language. And for the LGBT community, that doesn't always go that way. So this was a slightly provocative shoot in that sense. This was a collaboration with a New York photographer called Edward Garou. And here's another image on the left-hand side that we did, and that actually turned into an advertisement for a fundraiser for the food bank, which is one of the non-discriminating organizations. And what you had to do is you had to donate $5, and then in return you got a hug from Jesus. And this was part of an event that we did that sort of summarized the entire work from many, many different artists, and that was held in Providence at the Dark Lady, and was called On the Ninth Day, God Accepted All. And this was sort of the conclusion that was called a project promoting human equality and acceptance. One of my more favorite parts out of that project was we had a little photo project where we gave the attendees signs that said, I am accepted and I want to be accepted. And they could choose it, and they were photographed by Corey Gomes. By the end of that project, we looked at what we had learned, and these are some of the pieces that then were crystallized out and that are for sale. And that concludes this first project and gets me to the second project, which is completely different and shows sort of the wide spectrum within which that we're working. And this is called Project Bug. Project Bug was inspired by the duality of the insects. We have very extreme reactions to insects. We've always been inspired, as long as we can remember. The art world and the fashion world has been inspired by the beauty of the insect. But at the same time, innately, we have a certain sense of disgust thinking about what happens to our bodies in the process of decay, having things crawl over us, having infestations in our homes. So there's a very extreme sort of emotional reaction that we have to it, and this project sort of picked up on this. This was actually shot by photographer Bob Packer, who so happened to have become the head of photography here at the Penn Museum. And I think, Bob, you're here. Where are you? Bob is right over there. And this first image and these images are about the process of decay, where we sort of highlight the role of the beetle in the process. And the beetle is the second to last insect that goes over a decaying body, and is actually also being used by museums to be cleaning artifacts, because the beetle has a very strategic way to be cleansing things. And I think there's an incredible amount of beauty in the process of decay that we don't see or don't look at usually, because it's such a vital process of the life cycle. It nourishes new creatures, and it sort of shows us how small and in some ways insignificant we all are. In another story, we picked up on the symbolism of the insects, and there's a variety of different interpretations of the insect. And we picked up on the butterfly, and the butterfly's interpretation of being the returning and passing of a human soul. And this was about a story of a dying child and her mother, and this is probably the main image that came out of this particular story. In regards to life cycle, we did a pretty extensive body of work around the cicada. This image is one of my most favorite ones, and really sort of shows the emerging out of the exoskeleton that the cicada does. I don't know how much you know about the cicada, but the cicada is sort of interesting because it lives between 7 to 12 years in the ground, and then it emerges to only live for about 3-4 days before it dies. And when it comes out in these huge quantities, and it lands everywhere, and it makes all this music, and people have a torn reaction to it again, because in some ways it's almost a nuisance, and in some other ways it's a really beautiful, rare happening. This sort of symbolizes the music that the cicada generates. And here is a close-up of our cicada chest plate that actually also is here on stage, and I think after we're done with the talk, you guys can all come up and look at the pieces from close-up if you choose to do so. This was sort of a successful piece because people's reactions to it is either, oh my God, this is amazing and beautiful, or this is absolutely disgusting. So there's a very wide range, and to me, that made this piece extremely successful. Again, once we looked at the whole thing, we decided what we could actually sell out of this, and we had found a way to preserve the insects such as that they're sturdy enough to be worn as jewelry pieces. Here's a ring and a pair of earrings, and this is a neck piece. Here's a slightly different interpretation. This is by Korean fashion photographer Chun Seop Yoon, and this was published in Paper Cut magazine, and actually was on the cover, which we were very proud of. And this is a cicada mask, and sort of shows the defense and attack of the insect, which is also here on stage. Here's a close-up of our butterfly piece and an interpretation by José Espaillat on the left-hand side. Here we're entering a different project, and that project was called Modern Madonna. That was a collaboration with designer Jonathan Joseph Peters, and was closing last year's Boston Fashion Week. And these are sort of the editorial pieces before we started creating the bridal line. Here's one of them. This is an image by Corey Gomes on the right-hand side. This was, on the left-hand side, the main shoot around that project, which was done by Daniel Gagnon, and shows bamboo flowers on a wire structure. And on the right-hand side, you see the retail piece of the roses that are in bloom on an Italian lambskin base as a cuff. And this is one of those things that we've learned the process from the insects, and then we're able to apply it to the flowers. The Japanese have developed a process where fresh flowers, when they drink a certain liquid, they stay preserved in bloom. So these roses are actually, and other flowers as well that we're using, they look like fresh flowers. They basically are fresh flowers. And we then take them and paint them and process them so that they're sturdy enough to be jewelry pieces, with the whole purpose that the piece can potentially be passed down from a bride to her daughter once the wedding has passed, instead of an outdated wedding gown. And that concludes my presentation. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Alexa. You beat me to the punch. For that wonderful presentation. I know I am incredibly inspired, and I hope other people are as well. I'm going to start with a couple of questions, and then we'll throw it over to you guys and see what you guys want to talk about. Obviously, you both have an incredibly distinctive and unique styles and approaches. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how the collaboration between the two of you came together, and what the process was of entering the WOW competition, and really where that started.
So Alexa and I met for that first project that she did with organized religion. I actually just sent one of my pieces, and we didn't meet in person. We met through a friend. And when she saw one of those pieces, and when I saw the work that they're doing, I was like, maybe we should meet and have a coffee and figure out.
Yeah, I think that.
And after that meeting, we decided that we want to collaborate on the project Bug, and that's where kind of everything started. So in those early stages, we kind of discussed that we want to create some of the bigger pieces, and that they can reflect some of my work and her work, and that's kind of, so the process of creating Capri started much earlier than we didn't even know that we will submit it to WOW till much later. But the work on Capri started like 2-3 years ago now. Yeah.
Scaringly enough, a long time ago.
And so then you decided to enter it into the competition.
Yeah, I think WOW basically gave us a deadline, which we really desperately needed. And so we finished it. And I think what made that piece sort of unusual was that we didn't create it for stage. We really created it for to be on a display. And it is a huge accomplishment from WOW's side that it survived, because it was an extremely fragile piece that was completely embellished with beetle wings. So when we sent it off, we looked at each other and we were like, okay, I don't think we will ever see this again, because it's going to go for like 50 performances and I don't know how many rehearsals. So this is just not going to happen. And it's a real testament to WOW that not only it survived, but it is in a museum now. And so thank you for that.
And so, Alexa, you're the one who brought up the idea of entering it into WOW, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
But Mio actually always knew about WOW for many years prior to that.
Yeah, I knew about WOW since like academy years in Serbia, and WOW images and WOW costumes were always part of my research for all of the theater shows I design. I always want to make something that it's otherworldly, and but I always felt like that's so out there. I don't know if I have time, if I have the ability to sit down and focus on and create something for WOW. And then when Alexa said, there's this competition, I don't know if you heard about this, one of my assistants left this application, and I was like, of course I know for WOW, and and maybe Capri should be, or could be one of the pieces that we could send and submit. And so basically that's how it happened. And it's good because it gave us the deadline. We officially had to finish the costume. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, one day it will happen and it will evolve and at some point it will be exhibited. But this was an official deadline that helped us just breeze through everything and make decisions and get it done.
So what was sort of the collaborative working process like? Were you in person together working on it? Were you sending designs back and forth? Sort of what did that look like?
We did meet many, many times, and I would either go to New York or Mio would come to Providence, which is generally how we work on things. But we also sort of make to-do lists for each other, and then we try to hold each other accountable in the process. And we go back home and we work on it, and so it ultimately pushes things forward. Actually, Capri is one of the images that will come through for you guys to see. It's sort of a blue costume.
Yes, yeah. All of the pieces that you're seeing, we selected some of the images of the work that we developed for some of the clients that we had, and the work that we did together just on our own for just like various occasions.
So after you sent Capri off with your fingers crossed that it would survive the journey, what was the timeline for when you found out that you were going to be in the runway show? I mean, how did that work?
I'm actually not sure whether I remember the details of the complete dateline. There were a lot of different dates, and it's a very structured approach as to how you submit. You first submit images of what your whoopies are submitting, and then that's your first round, and you get a response to that then says you made this round or you didn't make this round, and then it goes into the second one where you do ship the actual piece, and then it will be shown to a jury in New Zealand, and then the jury decides whether you're going to be able to present on stage. And the entire time you don't know whether you won and placed, so there's about 100 designers that are being featured on stage, and it's a huge production in New Zealand. It's really an incredible production, but you don't know until the very end of the event and the award ceremony whether you placed.
And for those who haven't had a chance to go into the gallery yet, you can see examples of the runway show footage, and it is intense and amazing. So then you found out that you were going to be in the show, and you went out to New Zealand. What was that like? I mean,
it was really incredible experience. Because both of us, we've never been to New Zealand before. We planned 2 weeks to spend in New Zealand and to focus like last 4 or 5 days in Wellington, where the competition is happening. So we traveled through North Island, and we kind of had a vacation before the event and used time to enjoy the nature. And New Zealand is just incredibly beautiful. And then when we arrived to Wellington, we had the full schedule of events that WOW organized for us, and meeting designers, and just introducing us to some of the art community that exists in Wellington, and simply like giving us as much love and support as they could before the show. And then we actually got to see the preview, and then we saw the show on the official opening, when we realized that we won some of the awards and were granted the award.
To shift gears slightly, I'm interested, both of you, like I said, have such distinct styles that also clearly meld really well together. Where do you find your inspiration? Sort of what sources are you looking at? Is it history? Is it literature? Is it other artists? Is it nature? Sort of where are you getting your inspiration?
I think for me, nature is a huge part of my inspiration in my work. But it can be a happening, it can be an interaction. It's fairly random, and I think that's with what I presented. One of the things was, I mean, one was really sort of a statement, and then the other thing was completely immersed from nature.
For me as well, I think like nature is a very important part, and I think like I love to look into the images of the images of the nature. They're highly focused or like highly detailed, like zoomed images of like how things come to life, or because some of the shapes and forms that insects have, I think that's where my kind of fascination with them comes from. Is like when you look at them on the microscope, you see incredible shapes and forms that you don't get to see usually in nature. And I think that's where some of the lines on my drawings, I feel like, always come from. And through art history and fashion history, I think there's numerous people that inspire with various projects, basically.
And Mia, this is a question that's maybe more directly aimed at you, but Alexa, feel free to chime in. What is the process of getting something from sketch to production? I mean, you showed us really beautiful sketches at the beginning, and then some of those works became three-dimensional and became objects later on in the slides. So how does a design change as it goes from 2D to 3D?
Yeah, this is Capri. These are some of the detail images, and these are the front, back, and side look. This is something we submitted to WOW. That's one of the application requirements. And these are detail shots of embroidery that was done in House of Cash.
Yeah, and they're actually, you can see the front of the costume features a scorpion, and that one is entirely made with beetle wings as well. That one. And this is the second piece that we submitted, which was a bra called Renewal, and was again sort of about the life cycle with cicadas on it.
Oh, to answer your question, I think depending on what is the project that I'm doing, if I'm, there are a few things that are always the same. I love to think about the script or the character that I want to create, and then I do extensive research. Like I like to find the images that reference that for me in some way, or the images, regardless if they come from nature or fashion or art history, costume history, or any other creative art photography, and then I just sketch for a while, and from sketches that I create, I pull the patterns, and then depending on if I have collaborators, I open myself to their opinions of how that can be pulled to 3D, and what are the things that they're seeing, and what is my influence, or what do I think is the best thing, and then choosing the materials, and finally putting it all together. I think that's kind of the unified process for all of the things.
And Alexa, with that really different background of business and kind of this entrepreneurial spirit, what was the shift like for you going from that world into a world of artistic production? Have you found that skills that you developed as a businesswoman have impacted your creative work? I mean, obviously it helps you run a business, but as you talk about kind of being embraced by the organizations that are similar to the ones that you founded yourself, what has that transition been like?
I think it's a constant struggle. It's really two sides of the brain that you have to turn on. The business side is completely different functioning than the art and fashion side, and you know, being self-taught was sort of a little bit of a rocky journey, because you really do struggle with your own limitations. But it also probably was a big influx into innovation, because when you don't know how to build certain things, you look at it from a much broader sort of perspective almost, and you may come up with ways that are really truly yours and very, very unique. And I think we while this was sometimes a difficult journey, we also gained through that journey. And having the business side is helpful, because ultimately as an artist, you still need to promote yourself, you still need to pay your bills, and which sometimes is, you know, a struggle, since it's two different sides of the brain that you're turning on. And I think I'm grateful to every now and then be able to check myself back in and reference it and say, you know what, it's time to put the business hat on and stop playing and do that. So.
And that is actually a great segue to my next question for both of you, which is that you know, you both must have to be balancing sort of your own creative vision with the needs of your clients. I mean, you're both working with with outside collaborators and also with commercial clients. How does that work? Is it a struggle? Is it a challenge? Is it fruitful? Do you find it's enjoyable?
I think it feeds itself. I think the work that I feel I do for myself, it always inspires the client to actually hire me because of the work that I'm doing. And the work that I do for client inspires me to make something of my own, because some of the materials that I use or techniques that I use for specific projects, I feel they trigger imagination to like create a headpiece or a mask or a corset or something from it. So I think I always find it interesting to engage into as many different productions and artists, because I think you always get like different view on things that can be created with different materials.
I think for me, when we started the bridal line, I really was a little bit concerned because I felt that I wasn't sure whether I was ready to be dealing with really crazy brides. And in the end, I have to say that I have to agree with Mio. It really inspires each other, and it is a give and take. And I actually really, truly enjoy doing it. I may also have been very lucky and had really wonderful brides, but they do inspire what I do because, and it's an honor to make them happy and to contribute to their really big day that they have. So I think it's actually a really wonderful thing, and I wouldn't want to just create art. I like working with my customers.
All right, I've got one more question, and then I think we'll throw it over to the audience. As people who've clearly been able to make really incredible work and have had great success with it, what is your advice to artists and designers who are starting out, who want to produce wearable art and who want to become part of this community?
I think I would just say that they shouldn't fear to create and to open themselves to various materials and just to follow the creative thought, and to explore body as a canvas, and that it doesn't necessarily, you don't need to move your arms if you have a vision of some specific idea in your head. And I think just thinking about the costume or a body as a blank canvas that can like get any kind of decoration and any kind of embellishment, and just thinking about it as a 3D painting. So that sums it up.
Yeah, and I think I agree with all of that, and I probably just want to add that people really should think about it before they do this. This is not a 9-to-5, and you really need to want it. So, but if you do, then you should have the courage to do it.
Alexa with the voice of reason. All right, I think we'll open it up to questions. Jennifer, do we have a roving microphone? Okay, great. We will pause. Oh, no, it's all right. And also just a reminder, as Alexa pointed out when she was speaking, once we're done with questions, we invite you to come up and look closer at some of the headpieces that our artists have brought for us. They're as beautiful as they are from far away. They are even more impressive up close. So please do. All right, any questions? So the question was an exploration of materials. Has there been an evolution of in what you use, and what is the process of using them, and where do you source them from?
I think for me it's always, I really enjoy different textures, and I'm always drawn to something that has an unusual drape, or that it falls differently, or that it can give me it can give me structure, texture, and good impact or good color. And I think I always lean to new materials, and I'm always in the section that has like foam that it's covered in silk and then painted with plastic, or or new plastics, new vinyls, new foams that are available now are just incredible, or neoprenes and different kinds of foamy, plasticky materials are kind of interesting to me now. And I think like my interest in them I always leaned towards some of the materials that look futuristic, because that's always something that I draw, and I think like something that will give otherworldly look. And I think now I find myself working with Alexa helped and kind of opened my process and my thinking about materials toward crystals and toward like other ways to embellish and actually create the material that you're going to use to create something after. And as far as sourcing, I think my favorite store is what is it called? Rubber Supplies, and then hardware store, Canal Rubber, or hardware stores. I love Home Depot. I love, of course, like Garment District has incredible stores, and there are a few that just have incredible stuff that are coming from all over the world. Elegant in New York, and B&J, and I think like they have sections that are not necessarily commercial sections, that they're money makers, so that they're just like there to inspire. And recently I've learned that there is a library of all materials that FIT, I think, has. I still haven't been there, but a friend told me, it's like, you must go there, because they have the codes for all of the new materials that come out anywhere in the planet, and they hold all of that. So I think that's the next step. FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology in New York, and I've heard of that collection, and I think like they will have anything you can imagine. So all of the new fabrics and textures, I think like they're trying to collect it all, and then that's a good resource. But I think like some of the stores and online, some of the plastics you can find online if you're searching for cheaper options or more affordable options. That's always a good source.
I like to use a lot of things that nature already has produced. And I sort of was more recently on a mission to preserve just that with the insects and leaves, et cetera, et cetera. We've also started plating elements from nature. And as far as stones and crystals and pearls, et cetera, are concerned, we sort of import that from all over the world. And then I also try to use a wide range of vintage components. I sort of love the romance of a vintage component. It is limited. It is usually better done than what we do today, because the production processes and the metals were much more higher quality. And I'm sort of erratic with the materials that I use. So we also use industrial flooring, for example. So I also find myself a Canal Rubber. Actually, Mio told me about Canal Rubber, and I was very excited about it.
And Alexa
Canal Rubber is very industrial. I mean, it has like anywhere from tubes to like, I don't think there's too many designers that walk into Canal Rubber other than us, probably.
But it's interesting when I see like think that when Alexa takes rubber, she puts crystals on rubber and like tries to embellish it in a way to like give it a like totally different look. And I would like cut holes and like punch another like stud, or I don't know. Like I think like we have very different ways of thinking of materials, and I think like that's why we inspire each other to do crazy things.
I just wanted to say, I wonder if there's a photographer who took the photos of your work that we'd like to mention.
Oh, Bob?
Bob.
Alexa gave him a shout out.
You did? Okay, I missed it. My apologies. All right.
But also, Bob
Here we
Pax
go.
is
He's
amazing.
right over there.
Yeah. The lights are up. You can see him now.
My apologies.
Any other questions? The question is, which awards specifically did you win?
Capri won second place in the avant-garde section, and then we won first of the Americas section with Capri, and then the bra that passed by in the back won First Century Award.
First Entrant Award.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, that is like if you choose to submit to WOW, that's a category that is exclusively for people that submitted for the first time.
Bob Packard with a question. The question is, what are you doing for next year?
I think like there is one sneak. Oh my God, the sneak peek. There it is. We started working on like few new costumes. One is a seat piece and one is a medical project. And I think one of them will come to a point that we will submit it. But I think it's too early because considering how much time it took to create Capri, we don't want to submit design that it's like not fully completed. So we want to give it more love and more time before we show it to WOW.
Yeah, I think the submission deadline is actually the end of March. So it doesn't leave quite a lot of time. But if we don't submit this year, we're definitely going to submit next year. And we definitely want to outdo what we've done before. So
that's kind of like a challenge, and we want.
But thank you, Bob, for putting on the pressure.
Any other questions? So the question is, with the masks as an example, where the person actually can't see, are you guys using the body as a form?
For these two masks that are on display, they were actually the red mask hat was for Shiseido campaign, and it's supposed to feature the lipstick. So they required a headpiece that will where just the lips will be visible, and that's kind of it was made for a photo shoot, so it had a one-day life. But still, it will stay as an advertising for that lipstick. So it will never. I mean, maybe it will be worn on the runway, but I think it was made for that specific occasion. And the other one was also created for a promotion of an event for Hasselblad, and they wanted like the person to be completely covered in glass, and he was standing in a mirror box. So he was a sculptor, and we didn't want to associate with the character with the actor's face. So he was just moving, and that he had a choreography in the glass box, and that was kind of part of the concept. So he didn't need to see anything.
Having said that, I think it's a good point because doing work for the theater productions, or dance performances, which is what Mio actually does a lot, it can disorient people when they don't have full, like even if they have vision and there are eyes in the mask, it can really disorient them. And I think that's one of the struggles that.
Yeah, sometimes there was actually one piece that was a dance piece, and I wanted for all of them to have masks. I wanted all of their faces to be covered, and it was a pretty interesting challenge because director, choreographer wanted to go with my vision, but at the same time she was concerned for the dancers. So we came up with the mask that it's made out of mesh, black mesh, so I could decorate it on top and they could still see everything from the inside. So I always try to find a way to get my point, get my design out there. And sometimes with collaborators they allow it, and some just with some occasions it doesn't work. But I try to push as far as I can with the things that I want to make.
I think that's actually a great question to round this out on, just because so much of what you see in the galleries upstairs also kind of bring up these questions about where is the line between art and fashion, and between a wearable garment and sculpture, and how do we define those ideas in a world of creative production where those definitions are constantly shifting, and that's a really fruitful place to explore.
And this is a very personal opinion, but we're in a completely fast fashion market at this point that has been extremely commercialized, and the whole couture section is really sort of died off, and it still exists, and it should, and I hope it will forever. But I think the wearable art section is actually replacing, to me, what couture was for so many generations. And so the pieces are just like couture pieces. They should and can be worn, but it's probably not something you go and shop at Whole Foods with. So,
Though that would be great.
Although I would love to see that. Correct. Yes, my pieces you actually can buy at the PEM store here in the museum.
And you can come up stage and get a preview as well. Well, thank you both for coming and speaking with us.
Thank you
sharing.
so much.
Thank you.